Captain Zethkar stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. His long tail swished behind him as he studied the data on his command console. The reptilian captain had scales that gleamed dark green under the ship's lights. His yellow eyes showed no fear, only hunger for conquest. The Void Stalker was one of the finest ships in the Vorthak hegemony fleet. Its hull was thick armor plating that could stop most weapons. The ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Behind Zethkar, his crew worked at their stations with military precision. They were all Vorthaks, all warriors, all ready for battle. "Captain," said his tactical officer, Lieutenant Vasktor, "we are approaching the human border. Their warning beacons are getting stronger." Zethkar made a sound that was part laugh, part growl. "Warning beacons? How pathetic. What do they say?" Vasktor checked his screen. "The usual weak words. Turn back. Do not enter. Contact the diplomatic station for permission to visit. The message repeats in 47 different languages." 47 languages, Zethkar said with disgust. "They try to please everyone. This shows how weak they are. A strong species speaks one language and makes others learn it." The captain walked to the front of the bridge. Through the viewing screen, he could see the edge of human space. There were no mighty fortresses here, no fleets of warships guarding the border. Just empty space with a few small warning beacons floating in the void. The Vorthak hegemony had conquered 17 star systems in the past 50 years. Every species they met had tried to fight them. Every species had lost. The Vorthaks were natural warriors. Their thick scales could stop bullets. Their claws could tear through metal. Their ships were the most advanced in this part of the galaxy, or so they thought. "Captain," called the communications officer, "the other ships are ready for your orders." Zethkar looked at his fleet. 3 ships total. The Void Stalker was the largest, a heavy cruiser built for war. The Sharp Fang was a destroyer, fast and deadly. The Blood Moon was another cruiser, smaller than his ship but still powerful enough to level a city. Intel reports said human space was poorly defended. The humans had spread across many worlds, but they had no central military. Each planet defended itself. Their technology was old and simple. Their weapons were weak. Their ships were slow. This would be easy. "All ships, follow my lead," Zethkar ordered into his communicator. "We cross the border now. Target the mining colony called Haven's Rest. Intelligence says it has valuable resources and only light defenses." The 3 Vorthak ships moved forward. They passed the warning beacons without slowing down. The automated messages kept playing, but no one was listening. Zethkar felt the thrill of the hunt. Soon he would have slaves working the mines for the hegemony. Soon, human worlds would bow before Vorthak might. Soon his name would be known across the galaxy as the captain who opened human space to conquest. On his personal screen, he began recording a message for the Hegemony Command. "This is Captain Zethkar of the Void Stalker. We have entered human space without resistance. Their border defenses are exactly as pathetic as our intelligence predicted. I see mining stations and farm worlds with no military protection. The humans appear to have no real fleet, no fortifications, and no warrior spirit." He paused the recording to check his sensors. His tactical officer was right. The nearest human military base was weeks away according to their star charts. By the time any help arrived, the Vorthaks would have taken everything they wanted. "Resume. Recording," Zethkar said. "I expect to have complete control of this sector within 7 standard days. The humans seem to be exactly what we hoped. Weak, scattered, and unprepared for real war. Zethkar out." The captain felt proud of himself. This would be the easiest conquest in Vorthak history. What Zethkar did not know was that his ships had been detected the moment they crossed the border. Hidden sensors, invisible to Vorthak technology, had been tracking them since they entered the system. Across human space, quiet alerts were already going out. The humans had learned many things in their centuries among the stars. One of the most important lessons was this: the best defense often looks like no defense at all. Deep in space, Commander Sarah Chen sat in the captain's chair of her ship, the Nightfall. Around her, the bridge was dark and quiet. Her crew worked at their stations without making a sound. The ship itself was invisible to most sensors. It was a ghost in the void. 3 bogies confirmed, whispered her sensor officer. Heavy cruiser, destroyer, and medium cruiser, Vorthak design. They're heading straight for Haven's Rest. Chen nodded. Alert the colony, make sure they know help is coming, and send word to Captain Rodriguez on the Defiant. Tell him we have customers. The Nightfall was a stealth destroyer, one of humanity's most advanced ships. It could hide from almost any sensor system. It could move without being detected. It was the perfect ship for watching uninvited guests. Chen had been hunting in space for 20 years. She had fought in the AI wars. She had defended human colonies from pirates and raiders. She knew how to track prey without being seen. The Vorthaks thought they were the hunters. They had no idea they had become the hunted. On Haven's Rest, the mining foreman Marcus Webb received the alert with a grim smile. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from years of hard work. He had been a soldier before he became a miner. He knew what war looked like. "Boys," he called to his crew over the comm system, "we've got company coming. 3 Vorthak ships. Looks like they want to play rough." The miners stopped their work and looked up from their machines. They were tough people who worked in space. Every day, they did not scare easily. "What's the plan, boss?" asked Jenny Martinez, his second in command. "Same as always," Webb said. "We keep working and let the Navy handle the visitors. But be ready to get to the shelters if things get messy." Webb walked to his office and activated the colony's defense systems. Warning lights came on around the mining platform. Emergency. Doors sealed automatically. The few weapons they had powered up. It was not much, but it did not need to be much. The real defenses were already on their way. Back on the Void Stalker, Zethkar was getting impatient. "How long until we reach the mining colony?" 6 hours at current speed, Captain," his navigator replied. "Too slow. Increase speed. I want to get there before they have time to send for help." What Zethkar did not realize was that help had already been sent for. Help had been sent for the moment his ships crossed the border. The captain spent the next few hours studying intelligence reports about humans. According to Vorthak spies, humans were weak fighters. They preferred to talk instead of fight. They had no real military tradition. They were merchants and farmers, not warriors. The report said human ships were slow and poorly armed. Human soldiers were cowards who would run at the first sign of real danger. Human colonies had no meaningful defenses. All of this information was wrong, but Zethkar had no way to know that. The truth was that humans had been very careful about what information they let other species discover. They had spent decades making sure that potential enemies would underestimate them. It was working perfectly. As the Vorthak ships got closer to Haven's Rest, their sensors started acting strange. They would detect something for a moment. Then, it would disappear. They would get readings that made no sense, then everything would go back to normal. "What is wrong with our equipment?" Zethkar demanded. His technical officer checked the systems. "I'm not sure, Captain. Everything appears to be working correctly. Perhaps human space has some kind of natural interference." The truth was much simpler. Human technology was interfering with their sensors. Ships they could not detect were jamming their equipment. The humans were already playing with them. When the Vorthak fleet finally reached Haven's Rest, they found exactly what they expected. A simple mining platform orbiting a dead planet. A few cargo ships moving slowly between the platform and the surface. No sign of military vessels. It looked helpless. It looked defenseless. It looked like easy prey. Zethkar opened a communication channel to the mining platform. "Attention, human colony. This is Captain Zethkar of the Vorthak Hegemony. You are now under our control. Surrender." Immediately, and you will not be harmed. Resist, and we will destroy you." The response came quickly. It was the voice of an older human male, calm and relaxed. "This is Marcus Webb, foreman of Haven's Rest. I'm afraid I can't do that, friend. This is human space, and you weren't invited." Zethkar snarled. "You have no choice, human. We have 3 warships. You have nothing. Surrender now, or face the consequences." Webb's reply made the Vorthak captain's blood run cold. The human was laughing, actually laughing at him. "Oh, I wouldn't say we have nothing," Webb said. "In fact, I'd say you boys just made the biggest mistake in your species' entire history. But don't worry. Help is already on the way." Zethkar cut the communication. He was angry now. How dare these weak humans laugh at him? How dare they refuse to surrender? "Captain," said his tactical officer, "I'm detecting some minor system problems across the fleet. Nothing serious, just small glitches." The problems started small. A navigation computer would freeze for a few seconds, then work normally. A communication system would produce static, then clear up. A weapon targeting system would lose lock on its target, then reacquire it. Nothing obviously dangerous. Nothing. That seemed like an attack. Just the kind of technical problems that sometimes happened in space. Except they were happening far too often to be normal. Zethkar did not know it yet, but the humans were already inside his ship's computer systems. They were already taking control of his weapons, his engines, his life support. They were doing it so slowly and carefully that the Vorthaks did not even notice. The captain of the Void Stalker thought he was in control. He thought he was the predator. He thought the humans were helpless prey waiting to be devoured. He was about to learn how wrong he could be. In the darkness of space around Haven's Rest, more than a dozen human ships waited in perfect silence. They were invisible to Vorthak sensors. They had been there for hours, waiting for their prey to arrive. The trap was set. The bait had been taken. Now it was time for the Vorthaks to learn what it really meant to enter human space uninvited. Zethkar stood on his bridge, looking at the mining platform through his viewing screen. In a few more minutes, he would give the order to attack. In a few more minutes, he would begin the conquest of human space. He had no idea that in a few more minutes, his entire understanding of the universe was about to change forever. 12 hours had passed since the Vorthak ships entered human space. Captain Zethkar was beginning to feel uneasy, though he would never admit it to his crew. Something was wrong, but he could not figure out what. The Void Stalker and her 2 companion ships moved deeper into human territory. They passed several small outposts and mining stations. All of them looked defenseless. All of them sent the same kind of message when the Vorthaks contacted them. "This is human space. You were not invited. Please leave immediately." The humans never sounded afraid. They never begged for mercy. They just politely asked the Vorthaks to go away, as if 3 heavily armed warships were no more dangerous than lost tourists. It was starting to make Zethkar angry. "Captain," said Lieutenant Vasktor from his tactical station, "our sensors are still having problems. I keep detecting ships that aren't there." Zethkar walked over to look at the display. For a moment, it showed 3 human vessels following them at long range. Then the contacts disappeared. A few minutes later, the sensors would show different ships in different positions. Then those would disappear too. "It must be some kind of natural phenomenon," Zethkar said. "Human space probably has unusual magnetic fields or radiation that interferes with our equipment." Vasktor nodded, but he did not look convinced. "Should I run a full diagnostic on the sensor array?" "Do it, but make it quick. I want our systems working perfectly when we attack Haven's Rest." What Zethkar did not know was that the phantom contacts were real. Commander Sarah Chen's ship, the Nightfall, had been following them since they crossed the border. So had half a dozen other human vessels. They were all invisible to Vorthak sensors. Chen sat in her captain's chair, watching the alien ships on her screen. Her stealth destroyer was less than 1,000 kilometers behind the Vorthak fleet, but they had no idea she was there. "They're still heading for Haven's Rest," reported her tactical officer. "No change in course or speed." "Any response to our electronic warfare efforts?" Chen asked. Her communications officer smiled. "They think their sensor problems are natural interference. They have no idea we're jamming their equipment." Chen nodded. Human electronic warfare technology was decades ahead of anything the Vorthaks had. The aliens were flying blind and did not even know it. "Keep monitoring their communications," she ordered. "I want to know everything they're planning." The truth was that human ships had been watching the Vorthaks for months before they ever crossed the border. Intelligence agents had infiltrated Vorthak space. Spy satellites had monitored their military preparations. The humans knew exactly what the aliens were planning to do. They were ready. On the Void Stalker, the technical problems were getting worse. Navigation systems would randomly change course for a few seconds. Weapons would lose power, then come back online. Communications would cut out in the middle of conversations. "This is unacceptable," Zethkar snarled. "How can we conquer anything if our own equipment doesn't work?" The chief engineer, a heavily scarred Vorthak named Grelthak, climbed up from the lower decks. "Captain, I've been checking our systems all morning. Everything appears to be in perfect working order. The problems seem to be coming from outside the ship." "Outside? What do you mean?" "I mean something is interfering with our electronics, something very sophisticated." Zethkar's eyes narrowed. "Are you saying the humans are doing this?" Grelthak hesitated. "I don't know, Captain. But the interference patterns are too complex to be natural. They look almost like deliberate jamming." The captain laughed harshly. "Impossible. Our intelligence reports say human technology is primitive. They could not possibly interfere with Vorthak military systems." But deep down, Zethkar was starting to wonder if their intelligence might be wrong. The answer came when they tried to contact one of their scout ships that had been sent ahead to check the route to Haven's Rest. "Sharp Fang, report your status," Zethkar ordered into his communicator. Silence. "Sharp Fang, respond immediately." Still nothing. Vasktor checked his sensors. "Captain, I'm not detecting the Sharp Fang anywhere in this system." "What do you mean? Where did it go?" "I don't know, sir. It was there an hour ago. Then it just disappeared from our screens." Zethkar felt a chill run down his spine. Vorthak ships did not just disappear. They were too well built, too heavily armored. If the Sharp Fang had been destroyed, there should have been wreckage. There should have been an explosion. There should have been some kind of distress signal. Instead, there was nothing at all. "Captain," called the communications officer. "I'm receiving a transmission from Haven's Rest. It's the human foreman again. Put him on screen." Marcus Webb's weathered face appeared on the main viewer. He was sitting in what looked like a simple office, drinking coffee from a metal cup. He did not look worried at all. "Captain Zethkar," Webb said with a friendly smile. "How are you folks doing out there? Having any technical difficulties?" Zethkar leaned forward in his chair. "How do you know about our technical problems?" "Oh, word gets around. You know how it is." "Where is our scout ship? What happened to the Sharp Fang?" Webb took a sip of his coffee. "Can't say I know anything about that. Maybe they decided to go home early. Space can be dangerous for folks who don't know their way around." The human's casual attitude made Zethkar furious. "Listen to me, human. We are the Vorthak hegemony. We have conquered 17 star systems. We do not fear you." "I'm sure you don't," Webb said calmly. "But maybe you should start." The transmission cut off. Zethkar stared at the blank screen. No human had ever spoken to him like that. No species had ever shown such disrespect to Vorthak power. "Captain," Vaskator said quietly, "I'm detecting something odd in the asteroid field near Haven's Rest." "What kind of odd?" "The asteroids are moving in formation, almost like they're ships pretending to be rocks." Zethkar studied the sensor display. His tactical officer was right. The asteroids were too evenly spaced. They were moving too precisely. And some of them were giving off energy readings that rocks should not produce. It's a camouflage, he realized. Those aren't asteroids. They're human ships hiding among the rocks. For the first time since entering human space, Zethkar felt something he had not experienced in years of conquest. He felt doubt. How many ships? He asked. Vasktor worked at his console for several minutes. I can't tell, Captain. Our sensors can't penetrate their camouflage completely. Could be a dozen, could be 50. Zethkar made a decision. All ships, reduce speed. Prepare for possible combat. But as soon as he gave the order, more problems began. The Blood Moon reported that its main engines had shut down unexpectedly. The Void Stalker's weapons systems developed a targeting glitch that made them point in random directions. Captain, Grelthak called from the engineering station, someone is in our computer systems. They're controlling our ship remotely. That's impossible. Vorthak security. Protocols are unbreakable. Apparently not, sir. Whoever is doing this, they're very good at it. On the bridge of the Nightfall, Commander Chen watched her cyber warfare specialists work their magic. They had been inside the Vorthak computer systems for hours, learning everything they could about alien technology. We have complete access to their navigation, weapons, and communications, reported her technology officer. We could shut down their engines entirely if you give the order. Not yet, Chen said. Let them get a little closer first. I want them to understand exactly what kind of situation they're in. The Vorthaks were beginning to understand. As they approached Haven's Rest, more and more problems developed. Their shields flickered on and off. Their life support systems produced warning alarms for no apparent reason. Their artificial gravity shifted randomly, making the crew stumble around the decks. This is coordinated, Zethkar realized. Someone is doing this to us deliberately. But who? Vasktor asked. The humans shouldn't have technology this advanced. The answer came when a new ship appeared on their sensors. It was sleek and gray, about half the size of the Void Stalker. It moved with impossible grace, dancing between the asteroids like a fish swimming through water. Unknown vessel. This is Captain Zethkar of the Vorthak hegemony. Identify yourself. The response came immediately. This is Captain Rodriguez of the UES Defiant. You are trespassing in human space. You have 30 seconds to reverse course and leave our territory, or we will remove you ourselves. Zethkar looked at the human ship on his screen. It was tiny, compared to his fleet. Its hull looked old and worn. Its weapons appeared to be standard laser cannons, nothing special. The Vorthak captain began to laugh. You're threatening us? One small ship against 3 heavy cruisers? 29 seconds, Rodriguez replied calmly. This is ridiculous. All ships target the human vessel. Prepare to fire. 28 seconds. Zethkar was about to give the order to attack when his weapons officer reported a problem. Captain, our targeting systems won't lock onto the human ship. Every time I try to aim at them, the weapons point somewhere else. Override the computer. Fire manually. I'm trying, sir, but the controls aren't responding. 27 seconds, came Rodriguez's voice. Zethkar realized that the humans had complete control of his ship's systems. They could make his weapons fire wherever they wanted. They could shut down his engines. They could turn off his life support. His mighty warship had become a helpless target. 26 seconds. Wait, Zethkar called out. We need to discuss this. 25 seconds. Around him, his crew was starting to panic. The Vorthaks were natural warriors, but they had never faced an enemy they could not fight. How do you battle someone who controls your own weapons? 24 seconds. The captain of the Void Stalker looked at his tactical display. His ship was surrounded by hidden human vessels. His computers were completely compromised. His weapons would not obey his commands. For the first time in his military career, Captain Zethkar was completely helpless. 23 seconds, said the calm voice of Captain Rodriguez. Zethkar finally understood. The humans had not been caught off guard by his attack. They had been waiting for it. They had prepared for it. They had turned his own technology against him. The hunters had become the hunted. The countdown continued in Captain Rodriguez's calm voice. 22 seconds. Captain Zethkar felt sweat forming on his scaled forehead. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders that he could not give. His weapons would not fire. His Aeons engines would not respond. His ship was trapped like an animal in a cage. 21 seconds. All right, Zethkar said quickly. We will leave human space. Just give us time to turn around. 20 seconds. The human captain was not stopping the countdown. Zethkar realized with growing horror that Rodriguez meant exactly what he said. In 20 seconds, the Vorthax would be fighting for their lives. 19 seconds. I said we surrender, Zethkar shouted. 18 seconds. Lieutenant Vasktor looked up from his station. Captain, the human ship is moving. It's coming directly at us. On the main screen, they could see the UES Defiant accelerating toward them, but something was wrong with what they were seeing. The ship was moving faster than their sensors said was possible. It was changing direction without slowing down. It was flying like no ship should be able to fly. 17 seconds. All ships evasive maneuvers, Zethkar ordered. Sir, our engines won't respond, called the navigator. We're locked out of the control systems. 16 seconds. The Defiant was getting closer. As it approached, Zethkar could see that he had been wrong about the human ship. What he thought was an old, worn hull was actually advanced armor that absorbed sensor readings. What he thought were simple laser cannons were weapons he did not recognize at all. 15 seconds. Please, Zethkar said into his communicator. We understand. We will leave immediately. 14 seconds. Captain Rodriguez's voice remained perfectly calm, as if he were counting down to a routine training exercise instead of a battle that would decide the fate of 3 ships and their crews. 13 seconds. On his tactical display, Zethkar watched, in amazement as the human ship performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. It spun around asteroids like they were not there. It changed course so quickly that it seemed to teleport from one position to another. 12 seconds. What kind of engines do they have? Whispered his engineering officer. 11 seconds. The answer came when the asteroid field around them suddenly came alive. What they had thought were rocks began moving with purpose. Energy readings spiked as hidden weapons powered up. The space around Haven's Rest was filled with ships that had been invisible moments before. 10 seconds. Zethkar stared at his sensors in disbelief. There were dozens of human vessels hidden among the asteroids. Some were disguised as rocks. Others were so small they looked like debris. Still others were simply invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. 9 seconds. How many ships are there? Vasktor asked in a shaking voice. 8 seconds. The tactical display was lighting, up with new contacts every second. Destroyers, cruisers, ships so small they could barely hold a crew. Ships so large they dwarfed the Vorthak vessels. 7 seconds. This isn't a mining colony, Zethkar realized. It's a military base disguised as a mining colony. 6 seconds. Every piece of equipment in the asteroid field was showing energy. Signatures now. Mining platforms that were actually weapons platforms. Cargo ships that were actually warships. Even the asteroids themselves had weapons hidden inside them. 5 seconds. We walked into a trap, Vasktor said. 4 seconds. Zethkar opened a communication channel. Captain Rodriguez, we surrender completely. We will leave human space and never return. 3 seconds. Please, we understand now. We made a mistake. 2 seconds. The Defiant was now close enough that they could see its hull markings. Instead of battle scars, Zethkar saw carefully painted symbols that meant nothing to him, but looked important to humans. 1 second. Time's up, Rodriguez said. The Defiant did not fire massive energy beams. It did not launch nuclear missiles. Instead, it fired small, precise shots that hit exactly where the human captain wanted them to hit. The first shot disabled the Void Stalker's main communications array. The second shot destroyed a sensor cluster. The third shot took out one of the ship's engines. Each shot was perfectly placed. Each shot hit a specific system without damaging anything around it. The humans were not trying to destroy the Vorthak ships. They were performing surgery on them. "Return fire!" Zethkar ordered. "I can't, Captain," his weapons officer replied. "Our targeting system is aiming our guns at empty space." On the Blood Moon, Captain Skelvar was having the same problem. His weapons would not obey his commands. When he tried to fire at the human ship, his cannons pointed at asteroids instead. The humans had not just hacked their computer systems, they had taken complete control of them. The Defiant danced between the Vorthak ships like a predator playing with wounded prey. Every few seconds, it would fire another precise shot. Communications equipment, sensor arrays, engine components, shield generators. The human ship was systematically dismantling the Vorthak fleet, piece by piece. "This is impossible," Grelthak said from his engineering station. "Their ship is too small to have this much firepower." But Zethkar was beginning to understand. The Defiant was not fighting alone. The hidden ships in the asteroid field were also firing, their shots coordinated perfectly with the lead human vessel. It only looked like one ship was doing all the damage. "Captain," Vascator called out, "the Sharp Fang is trying to escape." On the tactical display, they could see their smallest ship attempting to flee the battle. It had turned away from the asteroid field and was accelerating toward the edge of the system. For a moment, it looked like the Sharp Fang might get away. Then it simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone. 1 second it was there on their sensors, moving at full speed. The next second, there was nothing but empty space where it had been. "What happened to it?" Zethkar asked. "I don't know, Captain. It just disappeared." There was no explosion, no debris field, no energy signature of weapons fire. The Sharp Fang had been erased from existence as if it had never been there at all. The remaining Vorthak crews realized they were not fighting a normal enemy. They were fighting something far beyond their understanding. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the communication channel again. "Vorthak vessels, you now have a choice. Surrender and be escorted out of human space alive, or continue this fight and join your companionship wherever it went." Zethkar looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him with fear in their eyes. These were warriors who had conquered star systems. They had never shown fear before in their entire lives, but they had never faced anything like this. "What are you?" Zethkar asked. "We're humans," Rodriguez replied simply, "and you're trespassing." The Defiant continued its deadly dance around the Vorthak ships. More precise shots disabled more systems. The aliens were becoming completely helpless. "I don't understand," Zethkar said. "Our intelligence said your technology was primitive. Our spies said you had no real military." "Your spies saw what we wanted them to see," came a new voice on the communication channel. A different ship appeared on the Vorthak sensors. This one was larger than the Defiant, painted in dark colors that seemed to absorb light. It moved without making any sound that their instruments could detect. "This is Commander Chen of the UES Nightfall. We've been following you since you crossed our border." Zethkar stared at the new ship. "Following us? Impossible. We would have detected you." "Would you? Check your sensor logs for the past 12 hours. Look for the phantom contacts your crew kept reporting." Vascator quickly pulled up the sensor records. His face went pale as he studied the data. "Captain, those phantom contacts, they match the energy signature of the Nightfall. It was really there. It was following us the whole time. Chen's voice continued. Every malfunction you experienced, every system failure, every targeting error, that was us. We've been inside your computer network since you entered our space. The truth hit Zethkar like a physical blow. The humans had not been caught, off guard by the Vorthak invasion. They had been waiting for it. They had prepared for it. They had turned the entire border region into an elaborate trap. Your species made first contact by invading our territory and threatening our civilians, Chen explained. This is your one chance to leave with evidence of what happens to uninvited guests. Around them, more human ships were becoming visible, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. They had been hidden throughout the system, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. Zethkar realized that Haven's Rest was not just a disguised military base. The entire region was a fortress. Every asteroid could hide weapons. Every piece of space debris could be a sensor probe. Every innocent-looking cargo ship could be a warship in disguise. The humans had turned space itself into a weapon. Next time we meet, Chen continued, we'll assume you're not interested in survival. The psychological impact was devastating. The Vorthaks had built their empire on the belief that they were the strongest species in the galaxy. They had conquered everyone they met through superior technology and warrior spirit. But the humans had just demonstrated that technology and warrior spirit meant nothing if your enemy controlled the battlefield completely. How long have you been preparing for this? Zethkar asked. Decades, Rodriguez answered. We've been watching aggressive species like yours expand across the galaxy. We knew someone would eventually try to invade human space. We've been ready. The captain of the Void Stalker felt his worldview crumbling. Everything the Vorthaks believed about human weakness was wrong. Everything their spies had reported was false. Everything their intelligence services had told them was a lie. The humans had not been too weak to defend themselves. They had been too smart to show their true strength. What happens now? Zethkar asked. Now you make a choice, Chen replied. You can return home with proof of what you found here. Or you can stay and see what other surprises we have prepared for uninvited guests. Zethkar looked at his ruined ship. Half his systems were offline. His weapons were useless. His engines barely functioned. He was completely at the mercy of beings he had thought were harmless. The proud Vorthak captain faced the most difficult decision of his military career. He could fight to the death and maintain his honor according to Vorthak tradition. Or he could live with the shame of surrender and return home to warn his people about the mistake they had almost made. Around him, space was filled with human ships that had appeared from nowhere. Each one was a reminder that his species had underestimated their enemy completely. For the first time in Vorthak history, retreat was the only rational choice. Captain Zethkar stood in the ruins of what had once been the bridge of a mighty warship. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. Emergency lights cast red shadows across the faces of his crew. The proud Void Stalker was now little more than a crippled hulk floating in space. Around his ship, dozens of human vessels maintained a perfect formation. They did not threaten or posture. They simply waited with the patience of predators who knew their prey had nowhere to run. Captain, Lieutenant Vascator said quietly, we're receiving another transmission from the human commander. Zethkar nodded wearily. Put her through. Commander Chen's face appeared on the main screen. She was a middle-aged human woman with short gray hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple military uniform with no decorations or medals. She looked like someone who had seen many battles and won most of them. Captain Zethkar, she said in a professional tone. You have 10 minutes to make your decision. Surrender and leave human space alive, or continue fighting and share the fate of your escort vessel. The Vorthak captain looked at his tactical display. The sharp fang was still missing. No wreckage, no energy signature, no trace that it had ever existed. "What did you do to the sharp fang?" he asked. "We removed it," Chen replied simply. "No further explanation is necessary." Zethkar felt a chill run down his spine. The humans spoke about destroying a warship the way they might talk about throwing away garbage. Casual, efficient, without emotion. "Commander Chen," he said carefully, "my species has a tradition of fighting to the death rather than surrendering. It is a matter of honor." "I understand," Chen said. "Many species have such traditions. Most of them are extinct now." The words hit like a physical blow. Zethkar realized that the humans were not making empty threats. They had done this before. They had faced other aggressive species, and those species were no longer around to tell their stories. "You're saying you've destroyed entire civilizations?" Vasktor asked in horror. Chen's expression did not change. "I'm saying that species which cannot adapt their traditions to new realities tend to disappear from the galaxy. Your choice, Captain." On the communication channel, they could hear fragments of conversation between human ships. The aliens expected to hear celebration or boasting. Instead, they heard cold efficiency. Target package secured. Minimal resource expenditure. Threat assessment, moderate. Begin preparation for cleanup operations. The humans were discussing the battle the way bureaucrats might discuss filing paperwork. To them, the destruction of 3 Vorthak warships was not a victory to celebrate. It was just another day at work. This was not even a real fight to them, Zethkar realized. Captain Rodriguez's voice joined the conversation. "Captain Zethkar, I want you to understand something important. What you've seen today is not our military at full strength. This is Border Patrol. This is the minimum force we deploy against uninvited guests." The Vorthak captain stared at the human ships surrounding him. "You're saying this is not your main fleet? This is one patrol group in one small sector of space," Rodriguez confirmed. "We have thousands of such groups spread across human territory, and behind them we have forces you cannot imagine." Zethkar tried to process this information. If what the humans were saying was true, then the Vorthak hegemony had not encountered humanity's military. They had encountered something more like a police force. "Captain," Grelthak called from his engineering station, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system. More ships are arriving." On the tactical display, new contacts were appearing. These ships were larger than anything they had seen before. Some were the size of small moons. Others seemed to stretch across kilometers of space. "Those are our reinforcements," Chen explained. "Standard procedure when dealing with unknown aggressive species. We like to be thorough." The reinforcements took positions around the asteroid field. They did not threaten or posture. They simply waited, adding their firepower to the already overwhelming force surrounding the Vorthaks. "How many ships do you have?" Zethkar asked. "Enough," Chen replied. The captain of the Voidstalker began to understand the scope of his mistake. The Vorthak hegemony had conquered 17 star systems over 50 years. They thought this made them a galactic power, but the humans had been preparing for interstellar warfare for much longer. They had built not just a military, but an entire civilization designed for conflict. Every colony was a fortress. Every civilian was a potential soldier. Every piece of technology was a weapon waiting to be activated. "Captain," his communications officer said urgently, "I'm picking up transmissions from Vorthak space. The hegemony is trying to contact us." "Put them through." The face of High Admiral Kreshatar appeared on a secondary screen. He was the supreme commander of all Vorthak military forces, a legendary warrior who had personally led the conquest of 7 star systems. "Captain Zethkar, report your status immediately. We have lost contact with your escort vessels." Zethkar looked at the admiral, then at the human ships surrounding him. How could he explain what had happened? How could he make his superiors understand that everything they believed about human weakness was wrong? "Admiral," he said slowly, We have encountered unexpected resistance. The humans are not what our intelligence reports claimed. Explain. Yourself, Captain. Are you saying that a few human mining ships defeated 3 Vorthak warships? No, sir. I'm saying that there are no human mining ships. Everything here is military. The entire border region is one massive fortress. Admiral. Kreshtar's expression grew angry. That's impossible! Our spies have confirmed that human space is poorly defended. Your spies saw what the humans wanted them to see, Commander Chen interjected, her voice carrying over the communication channel. The Admiral's eyes widened as he realized that the humans were listening to their private military communications. Who is this? Commander Sarah Chen, United Earth Space Navy. I wanted to introduce myself before your captain makes his final decision. What decision? Chen's expression remained perfectly calm. Whether your ships leave our space alive, or whether they join the rest of our uninvited guests in whatever dimension we sent them to. Admiral Kreshtar looked confused. The rest of your uninvited guests? Oh yes, Chen said. You're not the first aggressive species to test our defenses. The Zelkari Dominion tried to invade human space 3 years ago. The Makroth Empire attempted. Conquest 2 years before that. We have quite a collection of vessels from species that thought we looked like easy prey. The implication was clear. Other powerful civilizations had made the same mistake as the Vorthaks. None of them had survived the experience. You're bluffing, the Admiral said, but his voice lacked conviction. Captain Rodriguez, Chen said, please show our guests the memorial garden. The main screen switched to an external view of one of the larger human ships. Its hull was covered with what looked like artwork, geometric patterns and symbols in hundreds of different styles. Each of those symbols represents a ship we've destroyed, Rodriguez explained. Each pattern represents a different species that chose fighting over leaving. We keep them as a reminder that the galaxy is full of civilizations that thought they were stronger than they actually were. Zethkar studied the hull markings. There were thousands of them. Thousands of ships from dozens of different species. The humans had been fighting and winning against aggressive aliens for decades. The Vorthak hegemony has conquered 17 star systems, Admiral Kreshtar said with forced pride. Congratulations, Chen replied. The species that created those patterns conquered an average of 32 systems each before they met us. It didn't help them. The psychological warfare was devastating. Everything the Vorthaks believed about their own strength was being systematically destroyed. They were not galactic conquerors. They were just the latest in a long line of aggressive species that had overestimated their own capabilities. What do you want from us? Zethkar asked. Nothing, Chen said. We want you to leave our space and never come back uninvited. That's all we've ever wanted. And if we refuse, then you'll become new patterns on our memorial ship. Zethkar looked around his ruined bridge. His crew was staring at him with fear and confusion. These were warriors who had never known defeat. They had never faced an enemy they could not overcome through superior firepower and aggressive tactics. But the humans had made it clear that firepower and aggression meant nothing against properly prepared defenses. Admiral, Zethkar said to his commander, I recommend immediate withdrawal from human space. We are completely outmatched. Unacceptable, Kreshtar replied. The Vorthak military does not retreat. We fight until victory or death. Then you're choosing death, Chen observed. Captain Zethkar, you have 5 minutes to decide whether you follow your admiral's orders or save your crew. The captain of the Void Stalker faced an impossible choice. Vorthak military tradition demanded that he fight to the death rather than surrender. But Vorthak's survival instinct demanded that he retreat before his entire species made the same mistake. Admiral, he said carefully, if we continue this attack, the hegemony will declare war on humanity. Are we prepared for that conflict? Of course we are. The humans cannot possibly have the resources to fight a real war against a galactic power. Chen smiled for the first time since the conversation began. Admiral, I think you should speak with some of your intelligence officers. Ask them how many star systems humanity actually controls. Ask them how large our population really is. Ask them how long we've been preparing for exactly this kind of war. Our intelligence is accurate, the Admiral insisted. Your intelligence is exactly what we wanted you to believe, Chen corrected. We've been feeding false information to your spies for years. We wanted aggressive species like yours to think we were weak and poorly defended. Why? Because it makes you overconfident. It makes you attack with insufficient force. It makes you easy to defeat. Zethkar realized with growing horror that the human strategy was far more sophisticated than simple military preparation. They had manipulated their enemies into defeating themselves. The humans wanted us to attack, he whispered. Of course we did, Chen confirmed. How else were we supposed to demonstrate to the galaxy that human space is not a safe target for expansion? We needed examples. You volunteered to become one. The captain looked at his tactical display. His ship was surrounded. His weapons were offline. His crew was demoralized, and now he was learning that the entire invasion had been orchestrated by the humans themselves. The Vorthak hegemony had not stumbled into a trap. They had been carefully guided into one. 2 minutes, Captain, Chen announced. Zethkar closed his eyes and made the hardest decision of his military career. 3 weeks later, Captain Zethkar stood before the High Council of the Vorthak hegemony. The Great Chamber was filled with the most powerful military leaders in Vorthak space, hundreds of warriors who had conquered star systems and enslaved. Entire species waited to hear his report. The captain's ship, the Void Stalker, was still being repaired in orbital shipyards above the hegemony capital world. Its hull was scarred with precise burn marks where human weapons had surgically removed critical systems. The damage patterns told a story that no Vorthak engineer wanted to believe. Captain Zethkar, said Supreme Commander Thissarak from his throne at the center of the chamber. You were sent to scout human space and evaluate their defenses. Instead, you return with wild stories of defeat and surrender. Explain yourself. Zethkar activated the holographic display he had prepared. Images from the battle appeared in the air above the assembled council. They showed human ships appearing from nowhere, Vorthak vessels helpless against electronic warfare, and the mysterious disappearance of the Sharp Fang. Honored leaders, he began. Everything our intelligence services told us about human military capability was wrong. They are not weak. They are not scattered. They are not unprepared for war. Murmurs of disbelief ran through the chamber. General Krexthul, the conqueror of the Zalanti worlds, stood to speak. Captain, are you seriously claiming that a few human patrol ships defeated 3 Vorthak warships? Our vessels are the most advanced in the galaxy. No, sir. I am claiming that what we thought were a few patrol ships was actually a massive military installation disguised as a mining colony. The entire border region is fortified beyond anything we have ever encountered. Zethkar played the recording of his conversation with Commander Chen. The assembled warriors listened in growing amazement as the human officer casually described destroying entire species that had tried to invade human space. This could be elaborate deception, suggested Admiral Vorthon. Humans are known to be skilled at lying. Then explain this, Zethkar said. He activated a new section of the display. It showed detailed sensor readings from the battle, including the precise moments when human weapons had disabled Vorthak systems. The data was undeniable. Their weapons hit exactly where they wanted them to hit, he explained. They could have destroyed our ships completely, but they chose not to. They were demonstrating their capabilities, not fighting for survival. Supreme Commander Thissarak leaned forward on his throne. You are saying they were toying with us? I am saying they were teaching us a lesson. They wanted us to return home, with proof of what happens to uninvited guests in human space. The chamber fell silent. The idea that any species could treat Vorthak warriors as students to be educated rather than enemies to be crushed was almost incomprehensible. "Show us the intelligence data you gathered," ordered General Krexthul. Zethkar played the recordings of human military communications during the battle. The council listened to the casual, professional tone of human officers discussing the destruction of Vorthak forces. Target package secured. Minimal resource expenditure. Threat assessment, moderate. They spoke about defeating us the way clerks might discuss filing reports, Zethkar explained. This was not a desperate battle for them. It was routine border patrol duty. Intelligence Director Slithek stepped forward. He was responsible for gathering information about human military capabilities. His reputation depended on the accuracy of his reports. "Captain, our agents have spent years infiltrating human space. They have confirmed repeatedly that human defenses are minimal and their technology is primitive." "Your agents saw what the humans wanted them to see," Zethkar replied. "Commander Chen told me directly that they have been feeding false information to our spies for years." He played Chen's recorded words. "We've been feeding false information to your spies for years. We wanted aggressive species like yours to think we were weak and poorly defended." The intelligence director's face went pale. If the humans had been deliberately deceiving Vorthak intelligence, then every piece of information they had about human capabilities was worthless. "This is troubling," Slithek admitted. "It gets worse," Zethkar said. "They claim to have thousands of patrol groups like the one we encountered, and those are just their border guards." He showed the council images of the massive human reinforcement. Ships that had arrived during the battle? Vessels the size of small moons, bristling with weapons and carrying unknown numbers of fighters. "If their border patrol consists of fleets this large," Zethkar continued, "what do you think their main military looks like?" For the first time in the meeting, Supreme Commander Thissarak looked uncertain. He had built his career on the belief that Vorthak military power was superior to anything in the galaxy. The idea that they might have encountered something stronger was almost unthinkable. "Even if the humans are more capable than we believed," he said slowly, "they cannot possibly match the full might of the hegemony. We control 17 star systems. We have thousands of warships. We have billions of warriors." Commander Chen suggested I ask our intelligence services how many star systems humanity actually controls, Zethkar said. "Director Slithek, what is your current estimate?" The intelligence director consulted his datapad. "Approximately 40 to 50 systems, based on our latest surveys." "And how confident are you in that number?" Slithek hesitated. "Given what we have just learned about human deception capabilities, not very confident." Zethkar nodded grimly. "I believe the humans control far more territory than we realize. I believe their population is much larger than our estimates, and I believe they have been preparing for galactic warfare far longer than any of us suspected." He showed the council the recording of the human memorial ship, its hull covered with thousands of symbols representing destroyed vessels from dozens of species. Each of those patterns represents a civilization that thought it was stronger than humanity, he explained. Each symbol is a reminder that the galaxy is full of extinct species that made the same mistake we almost made. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some council members refused to believe that any species could be more powerful than the Vorthaks. Others demanded immediate mobilization for a full-scale war against humanity. Still others suggested that perhaps negotiation might be wiser than confrontation. Supreme Commander Thissarak raised his hand for silence. "Captain Zethkar, what is your personal recommendation?" The captain took a deep breath. What he was about to say would end his military career, but it might save his entire species. "I recommend immediate peace negotiations with humanity. I recommend formal diplomatic contact. I recommend that we become the first species to apologize to the humans for trespassing in their space." The chamber exploded in outrage. "Apologize?" The Vorthak hegemony did not apologize to anyone. They conquered or they destroyed. They did not bow to other species. You are suggesting surrender without a fight, accused General Krexthul. I am suggesting survival, Zethkar replied. The humans were not defending their space from us. They were protecting us from what they could have done instead. He let that sink in for a moment before continuing. They could have destroyed our ships without warning. They could have invaded Vorthak space in retaliation. They could have made examples of our colonies the way they apparently made examples of other aggressive species. Instead, they sent us home with a message. They demonstrated their capabilities without using their full strength. They showed us exactly what would happen if we continued on our current path. Supreme Commander Thissarak studied the tactical displays showing the battle. The precision of human attacks, the sophistication of their technology, the casual efficiency of their operations. It painted a picture of military superiority that was hard to deny. What kind of message do you think they wanted us to deliver? He asked. That human space has an open-door policy, Zethkar said. For diplomats, traders, and friends. But for uninvited guests who come with hostile intent, that door only swings one way. The captain activated one final hologram. It showed a map of local galactic space with human territory marked in blue. But instead of the small cluster of systems they had expected, the blue area covered nearly a quarter of the galaxy. This is what I believe human space actually looks like, he said, based on ship deployment patterns, communication intercepts, and energy signatures detected during our retreat. The council stared at the map in shock. If Zethkar's estimates were correct, humanity was not a minor species ripe for conquest. They were already the dominant power in this region of the galaxy. How did we not know this? Whispered Admiral Vorthan. Because they didn't want us to know, Zethkar replied. Because they prefer to be underestimated. Because they understand that the best defense often appears to be no defense at all. Intelligence Director Slithek was frantically checking his data files. If these estimates are correct, then human military forces could outnumber ours by factors of 10 to 1 or more. Which brings me to my final recommendation, Zethkar said. We need to send ambassadors, not admirals. We need to request permission to establish trade relations and diplomatic contact. We need to do everything we can to avoid giving them a reason to consider us a threat. Supreme Commander Thissarak sat back in his throne, processing everything he had heard. The Vorthak hegemony had built its empire through conquest and intimidation. The idea of seeking peaceful relations with a potential enemy was foreign to their entire culture. But the alternative might be the extinction of their species. Captain, he said finally, you are asking us to abandon everything we believe about Vorthak's strength and superiority. No, sir. I am asking us to learn the difference between strength and wisdom. The humans are strong enough to destroy us completely, but wise enough to give us a chance to choose a different path. The council debated for hours. Some members still wanted war, others demanded more intelligence gathering. But slowly, a consensus began to emerge. The Vorthak hegemony would swallow its pride and request formal diplomatic contact with humanity. Within days, the news spread beyond the council chamber. Across Vorthak space, military units stood down from combat readiness. Shipyards that had been preparing for war began retooling for peaceful exploration. And throughout the galaxy, other aggressive species quietly began reconsidering their own expansion plans. The message was spreading. Human space was no longer considered a safe target for conquest. Captain Zethkar retired from military service a month later. He spent his remaining years writing detailed reports about human military capabilities and strategic thinking. His work became required reading at every Vorthak military academy. The final words of his memoir would be quoted by military historians for generations. We went looking for easy prey and found apex predators. We went seeking conquest and found teachers. We went to spread fear and learned the meaning of respect. The humans gave us the greatest gift any species can receive, the chance to choose wisdom over destruction. I pray that future generations of Vorthax will remember this lesson and never again mistake restraint for weakness. The galaxy was a safer place because one captain chose to deliver an uncomfortable truth rather than a comfortable lie. And, in human space, the Border Patrol continued its quiet watch, ready to teach the same lesson to the next species that might need to learn it.
High Ascendant Veltar stood on the command bridge of his ship and watched a world die below him. The planet was called Kepler 442b by the creatures who used to live there. Now it was just another burning rock in space. Orange flames spread across the continents like wildfire. The oceans boiled and turned to steam. Cities that had stood for thousands of years crumbled into dust. Veltar felt nothing as he watched. This was how things were supposed to be. The weak served the strong, or they died. It was the natural way of the universe. The creatures on this planet had been foolish. They called themselves the Kaleri. They had fur like silver silk and eyes that changed color with their emotions. They were artists and poets. They created beautiful music that could make other species cry with joy. But they had made one terrible mistake. They had said no to the Zephyrian Empire. The Zephyrians had come to their world with a simple offer. Serve us and live. Give us your resources, your people, your loyalty, and we will protect you. We will bring order to your chaotic little lives. We will show you the glory of serving true gods. The Kaleri had refused. They said they wanted to stay free. They said they would rather die than bow to anyone. So the Zephyrians gave them what they asked for. Veltar was 9 feet tall with skin that looked like polished blue metal. His eyes glowed with inner light. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the minds of everyone who heard it. He was beautiful and terrible like a living statue carved from starlight. He was everything a god should be. Around him, other Zephyrians worked at stations made of living crystal. The bridge of the ship was huge, bigger than most temples. The walls curved up into darkness above. Streams of light flowed through the crystal like liquid fire. Everything hummed with power that could reshape reality itself. Report, Veltar said. His voice filled the air without him raising it. The cleansing is 90% complete, High Ascendant, said Sub-Commander Nixara. She bowed her head as she spoke. Even other Zephyrians knew their place in the hierarchy. The last population centers will be eliminated within the hour. Good, Veltar turned back to watch the planet burn. Have our historians record this? Let it be known that the Kaleri chose destruction over enlightenment. Let other worlds learn from their mistake. It shall be done, High Ascendant. Veltar had overseen the destruction of 17 worlds in his 3,000 years of life. Each time he felt the same quiet satisfaction. The universe was vast and full of chaos. Lesser species fought endless wars. They polluted their worlds and wasted their resources. They lived short, meaningless lives full of suffering and confusion. The Zephyrians brought order to this chaos. They brought purpose. Under Zephyrian rule, species learned to work together. They learned to build instead of destroy. They learned to worship something greater than themselves. Of course, some species had to be removed entirely, like the Kaleri. They were too proud, too stubborn. They would never learn to serve properly. Better to clear them away and let more suitable species take their place. The Zephyrian Empire now controlled 12 star systems, hundreds of worlds, thousands of species. All of them lived under the wise guidance of the Zephyrian God Emperors. It was the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever seen. Veltar remembered when the Zephyrians first learned they were divine. It was 3,000 years ago, when they were still young and foolish. They had tried to explore space like equals, making friends with other species, trading and sharing knowledge. Then they met the Vorthak. The Vorthak were conquerors who had enslaved dozens of worlds. They laughed at Zephyrian offers of friendship. They attacked without warning, trying to add Zephyr Prime to their collection of slave worlds. The Vorthak expected an easy victory. The Zephyrians looked weak and peaceful. But when the attack came, something awakened in the Zephyrian people. Their minds expanded, their bodies changed. Power flowed through them like lightning. The Vorthic ships, which had seemed so mighty, became toys in Zephyrian hands. Zephyrian warriors moved faster than thought. Their weapons bent reality to their will. In 6 hours, the entire Vorthak fleet was destroyed. In 6 days, every Vorthic world had surrendered. That was when the Zephyrians understood the truth. They were not meant to be equals with other species. They were meant to rule them. The universe itself had chosen them to bring order to the chaos of existence. High Ascendant. The voice of Communications Officer Zaleth interrupted Veltar's thoughts. We are receiving a priority message from the Outer Rim. Speak. Commander Zixhai reports an unknown contact in the Tau Ceti system. A single vessel of unknown design. It refuses to respond to our hails or acknowledge our authority. Veltar's glowing eyes narrowed. Unknown design. Elaborate. The vessel appears to be military in nature, but uses no technology in our databases. It is approximately 800 meters in length. Heavily armed. It broadcasts strange signals on frequencies we do not recognize. 800 meters. That was barely larger than a Zephyrian patrol craft. Whatever species built it was clearly primitive. Has Commander Zixhai attempted to enlighten them? He has transmitted the standard Imperial greeting and demand for submission. The vessel has not responded. It continues on its course toward the inner system. Veltar felt a small spark of irritation. New species appeared in Zephyrian space from time to time. Most were smart enough to surrender immediately when they saw the power of the Empire. Some needed a demonstration of Zephyrian might before they understood their place. Order Commander Zixhai to intercept and pacify the vessel. If the species shows promise, they may be evaluated for servitude. If they prove troublesome, eliminate them. At once, High Ascendant. Veltar turned his attention back to the dying world below. The last of the Kaleri cities had just vanished in a flash of white light. Soon, terraforming ships would arrive to reshape the planet for a more suitable species. Perhaps the Grethani would do well here. They were good workers and had never caused trouble. The bridge fell silent except for the soft humming of crystal conduits carrying power through the ship. The Divine Supremacy was the largest vessel in the Zephyrian fleet. 20 kilometers? Long and armed with weapons that could crack planets. It was Veltar's personal flagship, a symbol of divine power that could be seen from orbit. High Ascendant, Zaleth's voice carried a note of confusion. Commander Zixhai reports that the unknown vessel has scanned his ships. Scanned them? With what sensors? Unknown, High Ascendant. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Commander Zixhai's science officer believes the scanning method may be more advanced than our own. Veltar's irritation grew stronger. More advanced? Impossible. The Zephyrians are the most advanced species in the galaxy. That is what I told Commander Zixhai, High Ascendant. But the readings are clear. The unknown vessel is using technology we do not understand. For a moment, Veltar felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. Then he pushed the feeling away. There had to be a simple explanation. Perhaps this new species had stolen technology from another race. Perhaps they were using some crude but unusual scanning method. Order Commander Zixhai to demonstrate our superiority. Have him disable their vessel and bring them aboard for questioning. We will learn their secrets and add their technology to our own. Yes, High Ascendant. Veltar clasped his hands behind his back and gazed out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a primitive species was about to learn the same lesson the Kaleri had refused to accept. The universe belonged to the strong. The Zephyrians were the strongest. Therefore, the universe belonged to them. It was simple logic. Divine logic. In a few hours, this small mystery would be solved. The unknown vessel would be captured or destroyed. Its crew would kneel before Zephyrian might or join the Kaleri in extinction. Order would be restored. Veltar had no way of knowing that the small ship heading toward Tau Ceti carried something the Zephyrians had never encountered before. Something that would challenge everything they believed about themselves and their place in the universe, the ship was called the Indomitable. Its crew were humans. And they had spent the last 50 years learning how to kill gods. The bridge of the divine supremacy continued its quiet humming. The planet below continued to burn. And in the depths of space, two very different ideas of what it meant to be powerful were about to collide. Veltar stood in his divine glory, surrounded by the technology of gods, master of an empire that spanned the stars. He was beautiful and terrible, and absolutely certain of his place in the universe. He had no idea that everything he believed was about to become a lie. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched 3 alien ships move toward them. The ships were beautiful in a cold, threatening way. They looked like they were made of blue glass and silver light. Each one was 5 times larger than her destroyer. "Captain, we're being hailed," said Lieutenant Torres from the communications station. "They're using some kind of direct neural transmission. I can feel their words in my head." "Put it through the speakers," Elena ordered. "Let's hear what they have to say." A voice filled the bridge. It was deep and echoing like someone speaking from inside a cathedral. The words seemed to carry weight that pressed against their minds. "Unknown vessel, you have entered the sacred domain of the Zephyrian Empire. I am Commander HFY, voice of the divine. You will immediately cease movement and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will result in your destruction," Elena smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Mr. Torres, open a channel." "Channel open?" "Captain, this is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran Federation warship Indomitable. We are on a diplomatic mission to establish contact with new species. We claim right of passage under the Galactic Navigation Accords and request permission to continue to your nearest diplomatic facility." There was a long silence. Then the alien voice returned, sounding confused. "Terran Federation? There's no such entry in our databases. You speak of accords that do not exist. There is only the Empire. You will submit for processing or be eliminated." Elena looked around her bridge. Her crew was small compared to most warships. Only 43 souls. But each one was a veteran of humanity's war against the Kethmor. Each one had seen Earth's colonies burn. Each one had learned that in a hostile universe you either fought or you died. "Dr. Chun," Elena called to her science officer. "What do you make of their ships?" Dr. Sarah Chun looked up from her instruments. "Impressive, Captain. Their hulls appear to be some kind of living crystal. Energy readings are off the charts. They're using technology I've never seen before. But?" Chun smiled. It was the same smile Elena had worn. "But they're overconfident. Their ships are huge and powerful, but they're moving in a standard patrol formation. No evasive maneuvers. No tactical spacing. They expect us to run or surrender. And their weapons? Charging now, some kind of energy array. Probably designed to disable rather than destroy. They want us alive," Elena nodded. The Kethmor had wanted humans alive, too. They had wanted to study human minds, to understand how a species could be so stubborn and resourceful. The Kethmor had been very advanced. They had technology that could control thoughts and reshape matter. They had considered themselves the master race of the galaxy. The Kethmor were extinct now. "Commander HFY," Elena said into the communicator. "We appreciate your offer, but we must respectfully decline. We're not interested in joining your empire. We're here to talk, not to surrender." "Talk?" The alien voice carried what sounded like genuine confusion. "Lesser species do not talk with gods. They serve or they perish. This is the natural order." "Gods?" Elena raised an eyebrow. "You think you're gods?" "We do not think. We are. The universe itself chose us to bring order to chaos. Your refusal to acknowledge this truth marks you as either ignorant or insane. We will correct this flaw." Elena felt something trying to push into her mind. It was like cold fingers reaching for her thoughts. The sensation was familiar. The Kethmor had used similar techniques around the bridge. Her crew began to laugh. "Ma'am," said Sergeant Rodriguez from the tactical station, "they're trying some kind of neural attack. My implants are blocking it, but I can feel them pushing." Same here, sighed Torres. It's like someone tickling the inside of my skull. Elena touched the small device behind her ear. The neural interface had been developed during the war with the Kethmer. It protected human minds from alien mental attacks while boosting reaction time and tactical awareness. Every member of her crew had one, Commander HFY, Elena said. We're still waiting for that diplomatic facility location. The silence this time was much longer. When the alien voice returned, it carried a note of shock. How? The neural pacification field should have rendered you unconscious. No species can resist the divine will of the Zephyrians. Well, we're still here, Elena said cheerfully. Maybe. You should try asking Nellisley instead of trying to scramble our brains. Impossible. Our records show no species with natural resistance to neural control. You must be using some form of technological enhancement. We are, Elena admitted. We learned the hard way that the universe is full of bullies who think they can push other people around. So we adapted. Dr. Chen looked up from her instruments. Again, Captain, their weapon systems are fully charged now. And I'm reading 2 more ships approaching from the edge of the system. Elena nodded. Battle stations. The bridge lights dimmed to red. Throughout the ship, her crew moved to their combat positions with practiced efficiency. The Indomitable was a small ship, but it had been built to fight things much larger than itself. Commander HFY, Elena said, this is your last chance. Stand down your weapons and we can discuss this like civilized beings. Continue threatening us and we'll consider it an act of war. The aliens' laughter echoed through the bridge. It was cold and cruel. War? You are one small vessel facing the might of gods. This is not war, this is correction. Correction? We will disable your ship and study your technology. We will learn how you resist our will. Then we will improve our methods and ensure no other species makes the same mistake. Elena felt something cold settle in her stomach. These aliens weren't just conquerors. They were experimenting on other species, learning how to control them better. How many worlds had they conquered? How many people had they enslaved? Captain, sighed Rodriguez. The lead ship is targeting us with what looks like a tractor beam. Evasive maneuvers, Elena ordered. Take us into that asteroid field. The Indomitable lurched forward, its engines pushing it to maximum acceleration. The ship was fast and agile, designed to outrun larger vessels when necessary. But as they moved, Elena saw the 3 alien ships follow them easily. Their technology was definitely more advanced. They're gaining on us, reported Torres. Good, Elena said quietly. Her crew looked at her in surprise. Ma'am? Sighed Rodriguez. Elena's smile returned. It was the smile of someone who had spent years learning to turn disadvantages into weapons. Dr. Chen, are you getting good readings on their ships? Excellent readings, Captain. I'm learning a lot about their power distribution and weapon systems. Rodriguez, are the new torpedo modifications loaded? Yes, ma'am. Full spread of quantum penetrators ready to fire. Torres, do we have a clear communications link back to Fleet Command? Crystal clear, Captain. The beacon is transmitting everything back to Earth. Elena nodded. The Indomitable wasn't just a warship, it was a scout. Its job was to make contact with new species and learn about them. Sometimes that meant diplomacy. Sometimes it meant intelligence gathering. And sometimes it meant finding out exactly how dangerous a new threat was. The Zephyrians thought they were hunting prey. They had no idea they were being studied. Captain, said Chun, the lead ship is firing. A beam of brilliant blue energy lanced out from the largest alien vessel. It struck the Indomitable's shields and spread across them like liquid lightning. Elena felt the ship shudder under the impact. Shields down to 60%, reported Rodriguez. But holding, Elena frowned. The beam should have overloaded their shields completely. The fact that they were still intact meant these aliens were definitely trying to capture rather than destroy. They're trying to disable us, she said. They want us alive. Orders, Captain. Elena looked at the tactical display. 3 alien ships, each one massive and powerful. Behind them, 2 more approaching fast. Her single destroyer was outnumbered 5-1. During the war with the Kethmer, those would have been considered good odds. Target the lead ship? Elena ordered, full spread, quantum penetrators. Let's see how their shields handle our new toys. The Indomitable spun around in space and launched 6 torpedo-like projectiles. They were small and fast, each one equipped with experimental technology developed from captured Kethmer equipment. They could phase in and out of normal space, slipping through most shield systems like they weren't there. The torpedoes streaked toward the lead alien ship. Elena watched the tactical display as they approached the vessel's energy shields and passed right through them. Direct hits, Rodriguez reported. All 6 torpedoes found their target. The alien ship shuddered as explosions bloomed along its hull. Pieces of blue crystal scattered into space. The beautiful, flowing lines of the vessel became jagged and broken. The voice of Commander HFY filled the bridge again. This time it carried shock and pain. Impossible. Our shields should have stopped any weapon. How did you penetrate our defenses? Same way we resisted your mental attack, Elena said. We learned from our mistakes. What species are you? What is this Terran Federation? Elena looked around her bridge. Her crew was ready for the fight that was coming. They had all lost friends and family to alien conquerors. They had all sworn that no other species would suffer the same fate if they could prevent it. We're humans, Elena said simply. We're from Earth, and we're here to teach you something your empire apparently never learned. What lesson could lesser beings possibly teach gods? Elena's smile became sharp as a blade. That gods can bleed. The tactical display showed the other alien ships closing in, their weapons charging. Behind them, the 2 newcomers were almost in range. The odds were getting worse by the minute. Elena didn't care. She had faced worse odds before. Her ship was outnumbered and outgunned, but it carried something these self-proclaimed gods had never encountered. It carried humans who had learned to fight back. All hands, Elena announced over the ship's intercom. This is the captain. We have made contact with a hostile alien empire that believes it has the right to enslave other species. They call themselves gods. They think we should kneel before them. She paused, looking out at the beautiful, deadly ships closing in on them. I think they need to learn why that's a bad idea. Battle stations. Let's show them what happens when gods pick a fight with humans. The Indomitable accelerated toward the alien fleet, its weapons charging and its crew ready for war. Behind them, the communications beacon continued transmitting everything back to Earth. The Zephyrian Empire was about to learn that some prey fought back, and sometimes the prey won. High Ascendant. Veltar felt something he had not experienced in 3,000 years. Fear. The message from Commander HFY had been impossible to believe. A single small vessel had damaged one of their patrol ships. The unknown species called themselves humans. They had weapons that could pass through Zephyrian shields. They were immune to neural control, and they were still fighting. Veltar stood on the bridge of the Divine Supremacy as his flagship moved through space toward the Tau Ceti system. Around him, his crew worked with nervous energy. The impossible reports from the Outer Rim had shaken them all. High Ascendant, said Sub-Commander Nixara. We will reach the contact zone in 30 minutes. Status of Commander HFY's fleet? 2 ships damaged, 1 severely. The unknown vessel continues to evade destruction. Commander HFY reports that their weapons are ... unusual. Veltar's glowing eyes narrowed. Define unusual. Their projectiles phase in and out of normal space. Our shields cannot stop them. Their ship moves in ways our tactical computers cannot predict. And High Ascendant ... Nixara hesitated. Commander HFY believes they are learning from each engagement. Learning? Each time we fire on them, their next evasive pattern is different. Each time they attack us, their weapons target a different system. They adapt faster than our computers can compensate. Veltar turned to look out at the stars. In the distance, he could see the dim light of Tau Ceti. Somewhere near that star, a tiny vessel was doing something no enemy had ever done before. It was making Zephyrians doubt themselves. Communications, Veltar ordered. Send a message to the fleet. Tell them to maintain distance and observe. Do not engage until I arrive. Yes, High Ascendant. Veltar clasped his hands behind his back. The Divine Supremacy was the greatest warship ever built. It was 20 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could crack planets. Its shields could withstand the explosion of a star. Its hull was made from crystallized spacetime itself. If these humans could damage patrol ships, what could they? Due to his flagship, the thought was ridiculous. The Divine Supremacy was 100 times larger than the human vessel. It carried weapons that could destroy entire fleets. It was protected by technology that bent reality itself, but for the first time in millennia, Veltar found himself checking the status of his ship's defenses. Far ahead in the Tau Ceti system, Captain Elena Vasquez wiped sweat from her forehead and studied the tactical display. The Indomitable had been fighting for 6 hours straight. Her crew was exhausted. Her ship was damaged. But they were still alive, and the Zephyrian ships were. Learning to be afraid, status report, Elena called out. Shields at 30%, reported Rodriguez. We've lost 2 torpedo tubes and our port engine is running at half power. But we're still here, added Dr. Chun with grim satisfaction, and we've disabled 3 of their ships. Elena nodded. The battle had been brutal but educational. The Zephyrian ships were powerful but predictable. They relied on overwhelming force and expected enemies to either flee or surrender quickly. They had never fought an opponent that refused to give up. Captain, said Torres, long-range sensors are picking up a massive contact approaching from the inner system. It's huge, ma'am. Elena looked at the display. The new contact was enormous. Easily 100 times the size of the ships they had been fighting. Its energy signature was off the charts. Well, Elena said quietly, looks like we got their attention. Orders, Captain? Elena studied the approaching ship. It was beautiful in a terrifying way. It looked like a cathedral made of light and crystal, floating through space with divine majesty. Just looking at it made her crew feel small and insignificant. That was probably the point. Dr. Chun, Elena said, are you still recording everything? Every second, Captain. The data link to Earth is still active. Good, Rodriguez. Status on our special package? Rodriguez grinned. The relativistic torpedo is loaded and ready. 1 shot only. Elena nodded. The relativistic torpedo was humanity's latest weapon. It accelerated a small projectile at 99% of light speed. At that velocity, even a pebble could destroy a city. The Indomitable only carried 1, and using it would drain their entire power grid, but sometimes 1 shot was all you needed. Hold position, Elena ordered. Let's see what they have to say. The massive ship came to a stop several thousand kilometers away. It was so large that it blocked out the stars behind it. Weapons that could obliterate planets tracked the tiny human destroyer. A new voice filled the bridge. This one was different from Commander Zixai. It carried absolute authority and divine power. When it spoke, the very air seemed to vibrate. With majesty. I am High Ascendant Veltar, voice of the God Emperor. Master of the Divine Fleet, you have committed acts of violence against the chosen servants of the universe. For this crime, you will be judged. Elena keyed her communicator. This is Captain Elena Vasquez. Nice to meet you, Veltar. I assume you're here to surrender? The silence stretched for long seconds. Elena could almost feel the alien shock through the communication link. Surrender? Veltar's voice carried disbelief. You are one small vessel. I command the might of gods. You will kneel before the divine will of the Zephyrian Empire. We don't kneel, Elena said simply. Not to you, not to anyone. Then you will be destroyed. But first, you will tell me how you resist our neural control. You will explain your impossible weapons. You will give me the secrets of your species. Elena looked around her bridge. Her crew was battered and tired, but their eyes burned with determination. They had come so far from the terrified refugees who had fled Earth during the Kethmar invasion. They had learned to fight back. They had learned to win. I'll tell you our secret, Elena said. We learn from our mistakes. 50 years ago, another species tried to conquer us. They called themselves the Master Race. They had advanced technology and powerful mental abilities. They thought we would be easy prey. What happened to them? Elena's smile was cold as space. We killed them. Oh, impossible. No lesser species could defeat an advanced race. That's what they thought too. Right up until we cracked their homeworld and turned their entire fleet into scrap metal. Veltar's voice carried a note of uncertainty. You speak of impossibilities. The strong rule the weak. This is the natural order. The natural order, Elena repeated. You know what the natural order really is? Evolution? Adaptation? The weak either get stronger or they die. We got stronger. On the tactical display, Elena watched as more Zephyrian ships arrived. Soon she would be facing an entire fleet. The smart thing to do would be to run, to retreat and bring back reinforcements. But Elena had learned something important during the war with the Kethmer. Sometimes running just meant the enemy followed you. Home. Torres, she said quietly, are our friends getting all this? Yes, ma'am. Earth Command is receiving everything. Admiral Chen says the fleet is mobilizing, Elena nodded. Admiral Chen was her former commanding officer. He would understand what needed to be done. Rodriguez, target the big ship. Full power to weapons. Ma'am, our torpedoes won't even scratch something that size. Maybe not, but we'll make them remember us. Elena opened the communication channel again. Veltar, I'm going to give you one chance. Turn around and leave this system. Go back to your empire and tell them that humans are off limits. Do that. And maybe we can work something out. Veltar's laughter boomed through the bridge. You threaten me? You are an insect threatening a mountain. I will capture your vessel and dissect your crew. I will learn your secrets and use them to crush any species that dares resist divine rule. Wrong answer, Elena said. She looked at her crew. They were ready. They had always been ready. All hands, this is the captain. We came out here to make first contact with a new species. We found something else instead. We found a bunch of bullies who think they own the galaxy, who think other people exist just to serve them. Elena paused, watching the massive enemy ship on her display. Well, we've taught bullies lessons before. Today we're going to teach another one, battle stations. The Indomitable accelerated toward the divine supremacy. It was like a minnow charging a whale. The size difference was so extreme that it seemed ridiculous. Veltar watched the human ship approach and felt confusion. What are they doing? Do they think they can ram us? Weapons charging, reported his tactical officer. Should we destroy them? Veltar hesitated. He wanted to capture the humans alive. He needed to understand their technology. But they were clearly insane. Disable their engines, he ordered. Bring them aboard, the divine supremacy fired. Beams of energy that could melt asteroids lanced out toward the tiny human ship. But the Indomitable was no longer where the beams were aimed. It danced between the weapons fire like it was reading Veltar's mind. How? Veltar demanded. Our targeting computers are perfect. Nothing that small should be able to avoid our weapons. His tactical officer's voice was strained. High Ascendant, their ship is using some kind of predictive algorithm. It's anticipating our firing patterns. Elena smiled as the Indomitable weaved through the massive weapon beams. The neural interfaces her crew wore didn't just protect them from mental attacks. They also linked their minds to the ship's computers, allowing human intuition to guide automated systems. The Zephyrians fought like computers, precise and powerful but predictable. Humans fought like humans, chaotic and unpredictable and absolutely determined to win. Rodriguez, fire everything we have. The Indomitable unleashed its full arsenal. Quantum torpedoes phased through the Divine Supremacy's shields and detonated against its crystalline hull. Railgun rounds moving at relativistic speeds punched holes through armor that had never been damaged before. For the first time in its existence, the Divine Supremacy shuddered under enemy fire. Veltar staggered as his ship shook around him. Warning lights flashed across the bridge. Damage reports flooded in from all sections. Impossible, he whispered. Nothing can damage the divine supremacy. But the evidence was right in front of him. His perfect ship, his symbol of divine power, was bleeding energy into space. The tiny human vessel had done something no enemy had ever accomplished. It had hurt a god. All ships, Veltar commanded. Destroy that vessel. Use everything we have. The Zephyrian fleet opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams converged on the Indomitable's position. The space around the human ship turned into a hell of burning light. When the glare faded, the Indomitable was gone. Veltar felt a moment of satisfaction. Then his sensors officer spoke. High Ascendant, the human vessel has reappeared behind the fleet. They used the energy discharge to mask their movement. Veltar spun around to see the tactical display. The human ship was indeed behind his fleet, already targeting another vessel. And in that moment, High Ascendant Veltar, voice of the God Emperor, master of the divine fleet, felt something that shattered 3,000 years of certainty. He felt doubt. If gods could be hurt by such a small enemy, if divine ships could be damaged by primitive weapons, if the natural order could be challenged by a species that refused to kneel, then maybe the Zephyrians weren't gods after all. Maybe they were just another species that had gotten too used to winning. And maybe, for the first time in 3 millennia, they were about to lose. The battle lasted 3 days and spread across 3 star systems. Captain Elena Vasquez had never intended to fight a running battle against an entire alien empire. But as more Zephyrian ships arrived to hunt the Indomitable, she found herself leading them on a chase through space that would be remembered for generations. The human destroyer was faster than the massive Zephyrian vessels. It could hide in asteroid fields and behind planets. It could jump into hyperspace and emerge somewhere unexpected. But most importantly, it could learn. Every time the Zephyrians tried a new tactic, the humans adapted. Every time they thought they had cornered their prey, the Indomitable found a way to escape and strike back, and with each engagement, more Zephyrian ships limped home with damage that should have been impossible. High Ascendant Veltar stood on his damaged bridge and stared at the tactical display in disbelief. 7 fleets. He had called in 7 full fleets to destroy one small human ship. Nearly 200 vessels, each one armed with weapons that could crack planets, and they still hadn't won. Report, Veltar commanded. His voice no longer carried the absolute confidence it once had. The human vessel has escaped into the Kepler system, reported Subcommander Nixara. Her perfect blue skin was marked with cuts from when the bridge had been damaged in the last engagement. We have lost 16 ships, 23 more are severely damaged. Veltar felt his hands shake with rage. 16 ships? To one primitive vessel? High Ascendant, they are not primitive. Their technology is different from ours, but it may be more advanced in some ways. Impossible. But even as Veltar said it, he knew it might be true. The humans used weapons the Zephyrians had never seen. Before, they fought with tactics no computer could predict. They seemed to learn from every mistake and never made the same error twice. Sir, said the communications officer, we are receiving reports from the outer colonies. Several subject races have heard about the battle. There are disturbances. Veltar's blood turned cold. What kind of disturbances? The Valkyrie on Kepler 452b have stopped sending tribute. The Nexari are asking questions about Zephyrian invincibility and High Ascendant. The Korath have begun attacking our outposts. The bridge fell silent. The Korath were one of the first species the Zephyrians had conquered 3,000 years ago. They had been model subjects ever since, never causing trouble, always obeying orders. If the Korath were rebelling, it meant word of the battle was spreading. Other species were starting to believe that the Zephyrians could be defeated. How many ships do we have left in the hunt? Veltar asked quietly. 147 operational vessels, High Ascendant. Nearly 200 ships reduced to less than 150. All because of one human destroyer that refused to die. Speak, the tactical officer spoke up. I have an idea. Veltar turned toward him. Speak. The humans seem to care about protecting other species. What if we force them to choose between their own survival and the lives of others? Veltar's eyes began to glow brighter. Elaborate. There is an inhabited world in the Vega system. The Althany, 2 billion primitive beings. We could threaten to destroy their world unless the humans surrender. For a moment, Veltar hesitated. The Althany were useful subjects. They produced resources the Empire needed. Destroying them would be wasteful, but if it stopped this nightmare, if it ended the impossible battle that was destroying Zephyrian confidence across the galaxy. Do it, Veltar ordered. Prepare the planet killer. Meanwhile, in the Kepler system, the Indomitable drifted behind a large asteroid while her crew made repairs. The ship was a mess. Her hull was scarred with energy burns. Her shields flickered. Weakly, half her weapons were offline, but she was still fighting. "Captain," said Dr. Chun, "I'm picking up a massive energy buildup in the Vega system. Something big is charging up." Elena looked up from the damage reports she was reading. "How big? Planet killer big. They're targeting Vega 3. Elena felt her heart sink. Vega the Third was home to the Althany, a peaceful species that had never hurt anyone. They were farmers and artists, completely defenseless against Zephyrian weapons. "Are they demanding our surrender?" Elena asked. Torres checked his communications. "Array, yes ma'am. They want us to give up, or they'll destroy the planet." Elena closed her eyes. This was what she had been afraid of. The Zephyrians were learning too. They had figured out that humans valued other lives. "Captain," said Rodriguez, "we could run. Jump to hyperspace and get out of here. Let Earth Command know what we've learned." Elena opened her eyes and looked around her bridge. Her crew was exhausted. They had been fighting for 3 days against impossible odds. They deserved to go home, but if they ran, 2 billion innocent people would die. "No," Elena said quietly. "We don't run when people need help. Ma'am, there's no way we can stop a planet killer. Those things are designed to crack worlds in half." Elena smiled. It was tired and grim, but it was still the smile of someone who refused to give up. "Maybe we can't stop it, but we can try." She opened a communication channel to the Zephyrian fleet. "This is Captain Vasquez. We hear you want to talk." Veltar's voice filled the bridge, triumphant and cruel. "You will surrender immediately. You will power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. If you refuse, we will demonstrate the price of defying gods. And if we surrender, you'll spare the Althany, perhaps. If you provide us with your technology and submit to interrogation, we may allow some of them to live as examples of our mercy." Elena felt anger burn in her chest. These aliens didn't just want to conquer other species, they wanted to break them completely. They wanted to make examples of anyone who dared to resist. "I have a counteroffer," Elena said. "You turn around and leave this system. You go back to your empire and tell them that the galaxy doesn't belong to you. Do that, and maybe we won't have to kill all of you." Veltar's laughter echoed through space. "Kill us? You are one damaged ship. We are a fleet. You have fought well, but this ends now." "You're right," Elena said. "This does end now." She cut the communication and turned to her crew. "Rodriguez, is our special torpedo still operational?" "Yes, ma'am. But Captain, even a relativistic torpedo won't stop a planet killer. Those things are too heavily armored." Elena smiled. "Who said anything about stopping it?" She brought up a tactical display showing the Vega system. The planet killer was a massive weapon, built into an asteroid-sized platform. It was charging up its primary weapon, preparing to crack Vega 3 like an egg. But to charge that weapon, it had to draw power from the entire Zephyrian fleet. Every ship was connected to the platform by energy conduits, feeding it the power it needed to destroy a world. "Torres, can you calculate the exact moment when the planet killer reaches full charge?" "Yes, ma'am. 17 minutes and 32 seconds. "And at that moment, all their ships will be connected to it?" "That's right. They'll be locked into the firing sequence." Elena nodded. "Rodriguez, I want you to target the planet killer with our relativistic torpedo." Not the weapon itself, the power core. Rodriguez's eyes went wide. Ma'am, if we hit the power core while it's fully charged, the explosion will travel back through every energy conduit, Elena finished. Every ship connected to the platform will be destroyed. But Captain, said Chung, we'll have to get close enough to guarantee a hit. The blast will destroy us too. Elena looked around her bridge one more time. Her crew understood what she was asking of them. She was asking them to die to save people they had never met. I'm not ordering anyone to stay, Elena said quietly. We have escape pods. Anyone who wants to leave can go now. Nobody moved. Well, then, Elena said, I guess we have work to do. The Indomitable emerged from behind the asteroid and accelerated toward the Vega system. Behind them, the Zephyrian fleet followed. Confident that victory was finally within their grasp, Veltar watched the human ship approach and felt satisfaction for the first time in days. They are coming to surrender. Prepare boarding parties. Hi. Ascendant, said his tactical officer. They are not slowing down. They appear to be on an attack run. Impossible. They cannot stop the planet killer. Nothing can stop it once the firing sequence begins. But as Veltar watched, he realized the humans weren't trying to stop the weapon. They were heading straight for the power core. No, he whispered, they wouldn't. It would be suicide. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Elena watched the distance to target count down. The planet killer was almost fully charged. In a few minutes it would fire and Vega 3 would die unless she stopped it. All hands, Elena announced over the ship's intercom. This is the captain. We came out here to explore the galaxy and make friends with new species. Instead, we found monsters who think they have the right to destroy anyone who won't bow to them. The ship shuddered as Zephyrian weapons fired at them. Energy beams lanced past the bridge windows like angry lightning. We've shown them that their ships can be damaged. We've proven that their weapons can be stopped. We've taught them that humans don't kneel to anyone, no matter how powerful they think they are. Elena paused as another blast shook the ship. They were almost in range now. Today we're going to teach them one more lesson. We're going to show them that sometimes when you pick a fight with humans, you get more than you bargained for. She turned to Rodriguez. Fire. The relativistic torpedo launched from the Indomitable and accelerated to 99% of light speed. At that velocity, it became pure kinetic energy, unstoppable and devastating. It struck the planet killers. Power core just as the weapon reached full charge. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The planet killer vanished in a ball of white fire that expanded outward like a newborn star. The energy traveled back through every conduit, every connection, every ship that had been feeding power to the weapon. 147 Zephyrian warships died in the same instant. High Ascendant. Veltar had just enough time to realize what was happening before his flagship exploded around him. In his last moment, he finally understood the truth about the species he had tried to conquer. Humans weren't just another race to be enslaved. They were something the Zephyrians had never encountered before. They were god-killers. The Indomitable was destroyed in the blast. But her sacrifice saved 2 billion lives on Vega 3. More importantly, the destruction of the Zephyrian fleet sent a message across the galaxy that traveled faster than light. The gods could be killed. The Empire could be defeated. Freedom was possible, and somewhere in the darkness of space, other ships bearing the flag of Earth were already on their way to finish what Captain Elena Vasquez had started. 6 months after the Battle of Vega, the galaxy was a very different place. Former High Sub-Commander Nixara sat in a simple, metal chair in what had once been the throne room of Zephyr Prime. The beautiful crystal walls were cracked and dark. The flowing streams of light that had once filled the air with divine radiance were gone. Instead, harsh electric lights illuminated a room that now served as a courtroom. Nixara no longer glowed with inner light. Her blue skin had faded to a dull gray. Her perfect features showed lines of exhaustion and fear. She was no longer a goddess. She was just another prisoner waiting for judgment. Around her sat representatives from dozens of species that had once been slaves of the Zephyrian Empire. Korath warriors with their scaled skin and fierce eyes, Valkyrie scientists with their large heads and gentle faces, Nixari traders with their forearms and quick movements, and many others. They were all free. Now, the empire that had ruled them for thousands of years was gone, destroyed by one human ship and 43 brave souls who had refused to kneel. At the front of the room sat Judge Kethmori, an elderly Alphany whose world had been saved by the sacrifice of the Indomitable. His wrinkled face was kind but firm as he looked down at the former Zephyrian commander. Nixara of the fallen Zephyrian state, Judge Kethmori said in his quiet voice. You stand accused of crimes against sentient life, mass murder, enslavement of entire species, the destruction of worlds that refuse to submit to your rule. How do you answer these charges? Nixara looked up at him with empty eyes. I was following orders. We believed we were bringing order to chaos. We thought we were gods. And now? Now I know we were just another species that let power make us cruel. Judge Kethmori nodded sadly. The tribunal will consider your testimony, but first we have other matters to address. The doors at the back of the courtroom opened, and Admiral David Chun walked in. He was tall and lean, with gray hair, and the kind of steady eyes that came from years of command. Behind him walked Captain Maria Santos and the crew of the Earthship Defiance. The room fell silent as the humans entered. Everyone knew who they were. Everyone knew what humanity had done. Admiral Chun walked to the front of the room and bowed respectfully to Judge Kethmori. Your Honor, I bring greetings from the Terran Federation and the United Earth Fleet. Admiral Chun, the judge replied. We welcome you to the first session of the Galactic Justice Tribunal. We understand you have news about the formation of the new government. Admiral Chun nodded. Yes, Your Honor, representatives from 47 species have agreed to join the Galactic Democratic Council. They've signed the Charter of Universal Rights, establishing principles of freedom, equality, and self-determination for all sentient beings. A murmur of excitement ran through the courtroom. For the first time in 3,000 years, the galaxy would be ruled by cooperation instead of conquest. What of the former Zephyrian territories? Asked a Korath representative. They will be returned to their original inhabitants where possible, Admiral Chun replied. Species that were relocated by force will be helped to return home. Worlds that were stripped of resources will receive aid to rebuild. And former Zephyrian citizens who renounce the old ways will be welcomed as equals in the new order. Nixara looked up in surprise. You would help us? After everything we did, Admiral Chun turned to face her. His expression was serious but not cruel. The people responsible for the Empire's crimes will face justice, but not every Zephyrian was evil. Many of you were born into a system that told you lies about your place in the universe. You can learn better, and if we cannot, if some of us still believe we should rule, then you'll live in a galaxy where everyone else knows you're wrong. And if you try to hurt innocent people, we'll stop you. The simple certainty in his voice made Nixara shiver. She had heard that tone before in Captain Vasquez's last transmission. It was the voice of people who would never back down from what they believed was right. Judge Kethmori leaned forward. Admiral, many of our people have questions about human intentions. Your species has proven capable of destroying the most powerful empire in known history. How do we know you won't become the next conquerors? Admiral Chun smiled, and it was a warm expression that reached his eyes. Because that's not who we are, Your Honor. We didn't come here to rule anyone. We came to show everyone that no one has the right to rule anyone else. He gestured to Captain Santos. Captain Santos here commands a ship with technology that could defeat any fleet in the galaxy. But she's not here to threaten you. She's here to protect your right to make your own choices. Captain Santos stepped forward. She was younger than the Admiral, with dark skin and bright eyes that held both kindness and steel. My crew and I have sworn an oath, she said. We will use our strength to defend the weak and protect the free. We will never use our power to conquer or control. How can we trust such promises? Asked the Nixari delegate. Power corrupts. History shows us this again and again, Admiral Chun nodded. You're right to be cautious, but we're not asking you to trust us blindly. We're building a system where no one species can control the others. The Galactic Council will have representatives from every member world. Decisions will be made by vote, not by force, and if humans disagree with the Council's decisions, then we'll abide by them anyway, as long as they don't violate the basic rights of sentient beings. Democracy only works if everyone follows the rules, even when they lose. In the months that followed, the new order began to take shape. The Galactic Democratic Council established its headquarters on a neutral world in the Centauri system. Representatives from dozens of species worked together to write laws and settle disputes. It wasn't easy. Species that had been enemies for millennia had to learn to cooperate. Cultures that had never known freedom had to learn how to govern themselves. There were arguments and disagreements and sometimes even fights, but slowly, steadily, it worked. The Korith, who had been warriors and slaves, became some of the galaxy's best peacekeepers. The Valkyrie used their scientific knowledge to develop new technologies that benefited everyone. The Nexari became traders and diplomats, connecting worlds that had never spoken to each other before. Even some of the Zephyrians found new purposes. Nixara, after serving her sentence for war crimes, became a teacher. She traveled to worlds that had been damaged by the Empire, helping to educate young Zephyrians about the mistakes of the past. Why do you do this? A young Zephyrian student asked her one day, why do you help the people we once enslaved? Nixara looked out the window of the classroom at children of a dozen different species playing together in the schoolyard. Because I learned something from the humans, she said. Real strength isn't about making others fear you. Real strength is about protecting others and helping them grow. But we were taught we were gods. We were taught lies, Nixara replied gently. Gods don't need to hurt others to prove their worth. Gods create and protect and love. If we want to be worthy of the name, we have to learn to do the same. Meanwhile, on Earth, a memorial was being built in honor of the crew of the Indomitable. It was a simple structure, just a wall of black stone with 43 names carved into it. But people came from across the galaxy to see it. Admiral Chun stood before the memorial on the first anniversary of the Battle of Vega. Around him, thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds had gathered to remember the sacrifice that had changed everything. They were explorers, Chun said to the crowd. Captain Elena Vasquez and her crew went into space to make friends and learn about the universe. Instead, they found an empire built on the suffering of others. The crowd was silent, listening to every word. They could have run. They could have reported back to Earth and let others handle the problem. Instead, they chose to fight. Not for conquest or glory, but for the simple idea that all thinking beings deserve to be free. Chun paused, looking up at the names on the wall. Today, children play together on worlds that were once battlefields. Former enemies work side by side to build a better future. Scientists share knowledge that was once hoarded by tyrants. Oh. Because 43 humans decided that some things are worth dying for. In the crowd, representatives from every member world of the Galactic Council stood together. Korith warriors next to Valkyrie scientists. Nexari traders next to Alphani farmers. Even reformed Zephyrians stood with former slaves, united in grief and gratitude. We cannot bring them back, Chun continued. But we can honor their memory by continuing their work. We can build a galaxy where freedom isn't something you have to fight for because it's something everyone already has. As the ceremony ended, people began to disperse. But many lingered, reading the names on the wall and leaving flowers or small tokens of respect. A young Alphani child tugged on her mother's robes. Mama, were the humans really gods? Her mother smiled and knelt down to look into her daughter's eyes. No, little one, they were something better than gods. They were people who chose to do the right thing even when it was hard. Will I ever meet a human? You already have, her mother said, pointing to a group of human children playing with Alphani, Korith, and Zephyrian youngsters near the memorial. They're just people like us, but they showed us something important. What? That anyone can be a hero if they're willing to stand up for what's right. The little girl watched the children play together, their laughter echoing across the memorial park. They came from different worlds, different species, different cultures, but they played the same games and shared the same joy. Above them, ships from 100 worlds flew through Earth's sky, their crews working together to explore new systems and make contact with new species. They flew not as conquerors but as friends, carrying the message that Captain Vasquez and her crew had died to deliver. The galaxy belonged to everyone who lived in it. No one had the right to rule over others by force. And if anyone tried to bring back the old ways of conquest and slavery, they would find themselves facing not just humans, but every free species in the galaxy. The age of gods was over. The age of equals had begun. And in the vast darkness of space, where the Indomitable had made her final flight, a new star burned bright. It was a memorial star, created by human technology and maintained by the Galactic Council. It would burn for 1,000,000 years, a reminder to anyone who saw it that even the smallest light could drive away the deepest darkness. The star was named Vasquez, and it watched over a galaxy where children of every species could grow up free.